Much of the attention is focused on the Senate right now when it comes to the government shutdown. The House Republicans continue to press in, knowing that the November 21st date on the continuing resolution that they passed back in September is going to have to be changed. What might the new expiration date be? What are conservatives saying in the House? Joining me now to discuss this is Congressman Ron Estes, who is a member of the Joint Economic Committee, the House Budget Committee, and the House Committee on Ways and Means. He represents the 4th Congressional District of Kansas. Congressman Estes, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on.
So it previously looked like the election day wins might give the Democrats an off-ramp to reopen the government, but now some seem to be emboldened by those victories and want to continue.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they've laid out this whole strategy, the Democrats, as they've looked at shutting down the government, and they wanted to get through their protest rally, their so-called No Kings rally. They wanted to get through their election for the fall election season. And the issue now is they still can't figure out a way to get out of the corner that they've backed themselves into. And unfortunately, it's real Americans that are being hurt because of the policies that the Democrats have foisted on them. And, you know, the Senate has voted 15 times not to fund the government. And it's the Democrats' decision now to not fund the government. And we, Republicans, particularly in the House, we've passed our resolution to actually keep the government open while the appropriations are done for the full year. And instead, we're going through this difficult time that Democrats are using for political leverage, which is what they're calling it, in order to inflict pain upon American people and trying to get a bigger spending bill that they want.
Yeah, I think in part they might have been emboldened by the president's comments yesterday morning when he said that the shutdown was hurting Republicans that appeared in the election results. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think it may have thought, well, let's keep inflicting pain on the Republicans when in fact it's the American people that they're inflicting pain upon.
It really is. It's American people across red states and blue states. And, you know, if you look at where the elections were, New York, New Jersey, California, Virginia, all of those states have gone for Democrat presidential candidates for the last 20 plus years. So if you look at, it really was an election in Democrat primaries. It would have been more news if Republicans had run either the governor races or if California had lost in their additional gerrymandering effort that they put in.
The media would just bypass it. You wouldn't be hearing about it if that would have occurred. What are you hearing from Republican leadership in the House? Are the members on standby, ready to come back in if a deal is reached?
The speakers ask us to be ready and be flexible in terms of being able to react if the Senate ever does pass out a CR. Obviously, as you mentioned, you know, they've wasted 5 weeks now. I mean, the whole purpose of having a continuing resolution to November 21st was to allow a 7-week period where the appropriators could finalize agreements on what the next year's spending would be. You know, this continuing resolution, it's spending at the levels that actually Democrats have voted for 13 times when President Biden was in office. And so what we're trying to do now is, as you mentioned, we only have 2 weeks left now till the 21st date. So that's probably not a realistic date to get all the appropriations done. I think a more realistic scenario of what might happen is come up with a new date. I believe it ought to be into January to make sure that we get past the Thanksgiving and past the Christmas holiday spirit, holiday time frame, because otherwise we've got to recover from the damages that have been done over the last 5 weeks.
I would agree with that. I think it needs to go into next year, although I'm hearing that Senate appropriators, including Republicans, want to make it like a December 21st deadline, which we know how that story plays out. We've seen it many times before.
We've seen it many times before, and it never works well. I mean, you end up backing up against the holidays. I mean, what if we shut the government down? What if they shut the government down again on December 21st? Right before Christmas, when people are trying to travel to see their loved ones and going for a New Year's vacation with the family before they go back to school. I mean, that's just a bad plan. We've seen it fail over and over again. I do believe a January date's much better in terms of making sure that there can be thoughtful and come up with better decisions on what we should be doing with appropriations.
Yeah, because every time that's when they push bad stuff. And it's just because everybody wants to get home. They want to keep, as you said, in this case, keep government open. And so they just take this bad stuff. We just have a little over a minute left, Congressman Estes. I want to ask you this question. You kind of alluded to this, but given this new environment that we are in, is there any discussion about a concern that every time we come up to one of these funding deadlines that the Democrats could hold the government hostage?
It really is. That's kind of seems to be their playbook, is how to inflict as much pain as possible, trying to win their political points. I mean, I think we ought to look at some idea, maybe if we don't have appropriations done by October 1st, that we spend at 90% of the previous year's level. And that way we keep the government open, we keep it operating, we make sure that at least the core functionality is provided. Obviously, that wouldn't start new programs, but it actually makes sure that we don't inflict this pain on the American people.
Well, and also, I think, affecting our credit rating. I mean, this is doing damage to our economy. I mean, I think that's a great idea. I hope that gets some traction because we need to prevent this from happening in the future. And I think the motivation there would be the reduction in spending should bring some of the people to the table who like to spend money, and we can move forward. So I think that's a great idea. I hope it gets some traction. Congressman Estes, always great to see you. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Great. Thank you.